Hi, I'm Brian James, I'm Micro Four Thirds guy, and in today's video we're going to be looking at this, my 9-year-old Lumix GX1, the granddaddy of the camera I'm taking this video on, the GX8. Come and join me. Well, welcome, my name is Brian James, I'm Micro Four Thirds guy, and I'm here today at Carlisle Airport at the fantastic Solway Aviation Museum in front of this wonderful Vulcan B-2 bomber. Now, there's been one or two people ask me about this because they've seen it on the title. I've got a full video to come up about this soon, but a magnificent beast that it is, this aircraft. This is part of the exhibit here. You can actually get inside it and go into the cockpit. But that's not the reason we're here today. We're here to have a look at this. This is my Lumix GX1, and I've had this for a few years now. This was one of the first two Micro Four Thirds cameras I bought. I actually bought this not for the camera, but I just wanted the lens that was on the front of it. And I bought it at the same time as my OM-D E-M1 Mark 1. But I'm going to be checking out some of the specs on this camera. Then the sun's come out, which is wonderful. You'll hear some background noises. I'm right beside the airport. There's aircraft taxiing just over the hedge behind me. There's aircraft taking off and things. So any noises like that, just ignore. But this camera is absolutely fantastic. Well, or is it? It was when I bought it, but is it still holding out in 2021? Well, let's have a look, see some of the specs and see if it actually does hold out. So a little bit on the specs. I'm going to have a look at my book on this. 16 megapixel, it goes up to 12,800 ISO, and although it'll go up there, I really wouldn't suggest pushing it past about 800 or 1600 ISO, to be honest, with the noise. Although the good thing with the Lumix cameras is the shadows, even at those high ISOs, don't tend to get too discoloured. They do tend to stay fairly dark and keep retain the colours, but you do get high noise. It is almost 10 years old, this camera, remember. It's a 460,000 dot 3-inch display on the back. There's no EVF on the top. That's an extra if you want to buy it, but that equates to what, about a 480 by 320 display, so it's usable. The problem that you get is in bright conditions it's very difficult to see the display, so an EVF on a normal camera would come in more useful on that. It'll shoot up to 4 frames a second mechanical and up to 20 frames a second electronic, which is fabulous for a tiny little camera like this. Two assignable function buttons, physical ones, and 2 software ones on the screen which can be assigned. So I've got mine set up on this to my ISO, my white balance. It's got face detection, autofocus tracking. It's got 23 area focusing with 144 zones on that, so again, really useful auto track. Face detection, which again is somewhat unusual on a camera this age, so I find that very, very useful. Of course, it's also got Lumix's iAuto mode, as well as a full manual, aperture priority and speed priority, and a program mode as well. But the iAuto is a really useful thing, especially for beginners in the field of photography. It's very, very useful little bit of kit to use. The shutter will go from 60 seconds, a full minute, up to a 4,000th of a second, which again on this is a very, very usable range. And it's got a built-in flash, which the later ones in this didn't have. And although the flash is useful for a little bit of fill, it's not terrific for doing things. It's a very harsh light. I've used this when I've been doing portrait work. By turning the power of the internal flash way down, I've used this just as a trigger for external main strobe lights and used those. So I've got effectively set my aperture, I've set my exposure so low that the built-in flash is having very little effect, but it's enough to trigger the bigger lights which I'm using. So even though it might not seem too useful having the built-in flash, I've used it quite successfully at times in the past. And that flash will sync up to 160th of a second, which again is great. You can shoot in RAW and JPEG on this camera, and there's various levels of the JPEG up to fine mode. It's lightweight, unbelievably lightweight. 318 grams for the camera body, including the battery. I mean, that's nothing. The lens on this actually weighs probably more than the camera does, and if you look at it, you'll see that the lens looks considerably bigger too. Now again, it's a 9-year-old camera, but the autofocus I've been absolutely amazed by. It is so quick. Unbelievably fast on a camera like this. And again, if you're a beginner to photography, this is a breeze to use. The problem with it is second hand, you can get them really cheap. One in good condition from MPB, it was £59 for the camera, but you're going to be paying over £120 to get an EVF for it. So you pay your money, you take your choice. There are other options out there. But if you can find one of these used, they're a superb little bit of kit. They came originally as a camera body, or a camera body with the electronic zoom lens, a pancake zoom lens, 14 to 42. And they were incredibly expensive at the time. For the camera body, American prices, when they came out 9 years ago, it was about $700 for the camera body. And if you wanted with a lens on it, was about $950. Obviously no IBIS on this, so if you're using it with non-Lumix lenses, you're going to struggle a little bit, but using it on something like I've got on the 17mm Olympus that I've got here that I'm taking this video on, teamed up with this, is absolutely fantastic. This particular lens has OIS in, so again, nice and easy on that. It has a single SD card in the bottom, and it's UHS-1 only, but you can do SDHC or SDXC cards in there, and I've got a 32 gig card in here. I've never tried to actually find out what its maximum is, but 32 gigs is perfectly adequate. Video wise, it'll do shoot up to 30 frames a second, 1080 60i, which is its maximum. Now that might not sound much. When we're used to this idea of 4K, everybody's shouting for 4K video. I know it's great for doing digital crops afterwards and for doing all sorts of things, but if you're uploading something to say Facebook or YouTube and you're just doing a channel like this, I never shoot anything above 1080p 25 frame when I'm doing my shoots on this. So in reality you can get some superb quality out of this camera, and I'll do a couple of quick videograms which I'll show you here of the Vulcan bomber behind me. The camera was, as you can see, it's one of the small pocket sort of cameras, and originally came as a camera body, or you could have it with a kit lens, and in those days the kit lens came with a pancake 14 to 42 electronic zoom lens, tiny little lens, great for just slipping in your pocket. Now today I've got the Lumix 12 to 60 3.5 to 5.6 on here, Micro Four Thirds format, so you've got the full range of all the Micro Four Thirds lenses on the market, including the Olympus and the Lumix ones, including all the Pro and the Leica ranges of lenses. Remember, they'll all fit this, as well as the flash guns and the strobe lights, all part of the same Micro Four Thirds system. We're going to take some photographs now. Join me as I take some of the aircraft behind me, and let's see how we get on. Well, keep watching to the end of this video and we'll show you the results of those. Do you think they're going to be any good? Are they going to be usable? Or are they going to be total rubbish? Have a think about it before we reach the end. So, my views on this. It has some drawbacks. It is getting old. It doesn't have the ability to connect with Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, which can cause problems. But again, you can just use a little SD card adapter. They're very, very readily available on YouTube, which will either go into a USB or go into a lightning connector on your iPad or iPhone, and that's how I tend to get photographs of this when I'm on holiday. They cost not a great deal of money, but they're easy to transfer over. Then of course you've got all the editing facilities which you've got on those devices, or if you're putting it into a laptop or a desktop, they'll probably have an SD card reader anyway in it. It takes standard mode 1 SD cards, and you can certainly shoot on up to 32 gigabyte cards. I haven't actually tried anything bigger on this, but the 32 gig has been absolutely perfect for what I've needed up to now. It will shoot approximately 4 frames a second mechanically, and up to 20 frames a second electronically. Now 20 frames a second until recently was just unbelievable, and especially on a small pocket camera like this, fantastic. It is a bit of an increase in comfort over its predecessors, the GX1, 2 and 3, insofar as it has a finger grip on there, and that does make a difference. It does make the camera an awful lot more comfortable in the hand, an awful lot easier to hold, and a lot more secure. Because again, when I'm walking around with the camera, the last thing I'm going to worry about is whether it's going to slip out of my hand, and this just doesn't feel as if it's going to. It's great. So what are my conclusions on this? Well, let's go and have a look at the photographs and the videos and see how they turned out. Well, I'm sure you'll see from there, best you can on a YouTube video because there's compression on there, but these are no worse than any other Micro Four Third camera with a 16 megapixel sensor on. It is a fantastic sensor. It worked really, really well. I've been shooting, as I say, an OM-D E-M1 with a 16 megapixel sensor for several years, and I've got some awesome results out of it. So there's no reason why this shouldn't. Drawbacks, obviously, as I say, we're not having an EVF. It is a different shooting style. It's not a shooting style I like. I don't particularly like using the displays on the back unless I'm doing something with a tilt display, such as on the GX8 here or the G9, where I can actually pull it out to get low down or high up. But on this, I find it difficult, especially when there's bright light behind, because you just can't see anything easily on it. But for its size, for its weight, for its quality of photographs, I don't think it can be beaten. I'm really impressed. Now, these things I've just been looking up on MPB, which is a second-hand camera site in the UK, and a good quality one of these was going for £59. Now, if you want to start in photography and you want to get into something to give you really, really good results, £59 for a camera body is incredible. You can buy the kit lens on these for about £70, the 14 to 42. And to be perfectly honest, I don't like the electronic zoom. I would go for the standard G Vario lens if I was going on that, or the Olympus version of it. But paired up with that, for well less than £150, you've got an incredibly useful camera. In fact, it's probably about £120 that you're going to be spending on it. So if you're wanting to get into photography, dip your toes into the market, not totally sure if you're going to take to it or not, this is a really, really good investment to do it. Not the best on the market, don't get me wrong, but they're solid and reliable. It's a metal case, or predominantly metal case, and in fact, yes, the whole thing's screwed together as metal. There's very little plastic on it, to tell you the truth. There's some grippy finger grips on there, but the rest of it is a solid metal case, which is great. It's got a couple of built-in microphones, stereo microphones for recording. The quality is so-so, but it works. It also has various scenes built into it, so if you're shooting on the JPEG and you want to get some built-in effects, you can, all the sort of monochrome or sepia tone you can do. It's got various effects modes in it. Really, really good fun for doing that. But it also shoots RAW as well as JPEG, so if you want to get onto some of the editing software and to start pulling that quality out, it's equally as good as any other Micro Four Thirds camera for pulling that quality off the photographs themselves. It's incredibly adaptable, incredibly usable. Would I buy another one now? Yes, I would. I wouldn't even think twice about it. It's a great camera as well if you want to just take it on a holiday. At £59, yes, you're spending money on it, but if anything happened to it, especially with a small kit lens, it's throwaway. As a street photography camera, it is absolutely fantastic. Again, put something like the 15mm or 20mm Lumix lens or the 17mm Olympus lens on it. It's small enough and discreet enough that you're not even going to notice it's there. And if you want to take street photos, that's what you're really looking for. Especially, I would actually suggest using the Olympus lens, because one of the beauties with the Olympus lens is you've got that pull-back focus ring, and you've also got a graduated dial to see what your depth is. So if you want to do focus on that, you can set it to where you want it to do. Just point and click, and you're probably going to get a really good street photography shot out of it. So once again, this is Brian James at Micro Four Thirds guys saying thanks very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, there's a subscribe link just below, and there's also beside it a notification bell. Click on that and it's going to send you notifications anytime I upload a new video. The other thing is, if you want to make a donation to buy me a cup of coffee or to help put some of the fuel in the tank for me to carry on doing these videos, there's a PayPal link below. Give me a donation onto that. I really would appreciate it. And there's a list of names going up and down here, which you'll see, which are the people who've already donated on this. Thank you so much for giving the support to the channel. Finally, I have my Patreon page where some of the outtakes and some extra little features are going to be put onto there. And again, for a small monthly fee, you can be part of this channel and see the extra footage that I shoot. So until the next time we see each other, enjoy taking your photographs, enjoy your photography, keep shooting, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye bye.